All right, so I think this is recording. Let's take a look at this problem, read it carefully, then determine thing one and thing two, and then press continue. All right, so I'm going to identify thing one and thing two as my plane flying with the wind versus against the wind. Now, you could, alternatively, you could have said, with the wind um, is the wind's blowing due east, so you could have east and west, and it's the same idea. Or you could, have those in reverse order. Now that you've identified thing one and thing two, complete the table as much as you can, and then press continue. All right, so let's. With the wind is pushing you and making you go faster. So our rate is faster with the wind, and it's stated that it's 200 miles per hour with the wind. Now, when you're flying against the wind, it slows you down, and you're going 150 miles per hour. Um, the total time, the total trip for the whole out for the round trip was 4 hours. But we don't know individually, to go from our airport towards Indianapolis. We don't know how long that took, and we don't know how long it took coming back. Since you're flying faster, it's obviously going to be lesser time to get there than if you were going slower. Um, Now the distance is the same. Does it tell us? No, actually, it's asking us to determine how far is the airport from Indianapolis. So the distance going to Indianapolis is the same as the distance coming from Indianapolis. And although you could add that up to 2x, I don't believe that that's going to come into play in this problem myself. All right, so now that we have our table, we know with uniform motion that we're in these problems that we're looking at, it's always going to be one of these four options to set up our relationship. And the information in the table, we'll use that distance equals rate. Boy, what did I do there? Distance is equal to rate times time, or writing the same equation in terms of solving it for time, distance divided by rate. So pick which of these equations that you're going to use to solve this problem and then click continue. All right, so we it's possible but unlikely that we would set these two distances equal to each other. Although maybe we could do that. All right, now I don't believe that it would be reasonable, especially since one's so much faster than the other. We know that the times are not going to be equal, and I don't see us using the total distance. But this total time, that can be one that we use as well. That's generally when they give me the total time or the total distance, that's the one I gravitate towards. But let's try this distance for thing one and thing two this time and see if we can't figure it out. Distance is rate times time. So 200 times t1 should be equal to 150 times t2. But I also have another relationship that I have that t1 plus t2 is 4 hours. I know that. So I can substitute in, I can rewrite this equation as t2 is 4 minus t1. So we have 200 times what I've called t1, 150 times t2, but we're going to write t2 as 4 minus t1. And let's solve this for t1. 4 times 150 is 600, right? Minus 150, 150 t1. If I add that to each side, 350 t1 is equal to 600. 60 divided by 35, that reduces to 12 over 7, right? Yeah. Now, what did it ask us? How far is the airport? Well, that was, we used this, so we can use either side here. Well, we solve for t1, so let's take 200 times t1. 200 times t1, 200 times this, and that's going to be our distance. How far is the airport to Indianapolis? So that should be it. 200 times 12 divided by 7. Let's round it to the nearest tenth, or even, let's just round it to the nearest integer value. 342.857, let's just call that 343. All right, so I believe that it's 343 miles. Now, I want to do it again with the other equation. I want to try this total time and see if we don't get the same answer. All right, so I'm going to erase all this work, if it'll let me. It's why I don't understand why. There we go. It gets stuck on. Yeah, where's the size? Yeah. Now that I'm on the eraser, it's not letting me back on the pen. But unless I go to the library, try to switch all these things, and then it's letting me do it. All right, the total time, if we're using this guy, they said was 4 hours. And we know that time is distance divided by rate. So this T1, the time of thing 1 is actually x over 200. And the time T2, distance divided by rate, is x over 150. So if I get a denominator of 600, then that would be a common denominator. So if I multiply this guy by 600 over 600, if I multiply this guy by 3 over 3, and if I multiply this guy by 4 over 4, will that do the trick? 600 times 4, 2400, 3x plus 4x and 2400 divided by 7 is the same answer, 342. Well, we'll just call it 343. So we had two different ways that we could figure this out. All right, from our distance from the airport to Indianapolis, whether we use the total time and break it into the sum of the parts, or equate the two distances together, we get the same answer. So hope that helps, and I will talk to you later. Bye.